You all would know the reason why I'm leaving early out of the country. My scheduled departure out of the country was after independence, possibly at the 18th or 19th. I would have flown out via Brisbane to New York for United Nations, but the departure of our Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II has caused me to leave country earlier, and so I'm departing this afternoon via Singapore. Our Governor-General has traveled out early today via Brisbane as the head of state, and the Prime Minister protocol doesn't allow for us to be traveling together, so he travels on his own and I'm traveling on my own. But both of us will end up in London around the same time for programs to start on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. The programs that we are marked to attend includes the funeral programs of the late Queen Elizabeth, as well as the ascension of Prince Charles into the throne. He was, through the Privy Council, already ascended to the throne, but formally those of us who are from the realm and the Commonwealth will have moments with him. As most of you would have known by now, they had a 10-day program. And when I was first sworn into office as Prime Minister, one of the earliest briefs I received was a confidential document codenamed, I think, Operation London Bridge. That was a confidential file every Commonwealth nations had. Of that, there was a 10-day program. The date of death was classified as D, and then day 1, day 2, day 3. In that program, Papua New Guinea was earmarked to meet. Papua New Guinea Prime Minister and Papua New Guinea Governor-General was earmarked to meet on the 8th day. Coincidentally for us, ironically, it falls on the 16th of September. If the late Queen had died one day earlier, it would have been on the 16th of September. If the late Queen had died one day later, it would have been on the 17th of September. For whatever it is worth, it is noted that as far as the calendar, for me as a Christian, I believe nothing happens by accident, all happens by divine ordinance. The Prince Charles was here in Papua New Guinea 47 years ago, September 16, 1975. He was our chief guest. He witnessed our country becoming independent for the first time. By the ordinance of time and calendar, it happened that the 8th day since the Queen had passed and the scheduled time for PNG to meet the King who ascended, it fell in place neatly with our 47th anniversary. And on the 16th of September, myself and Governor-General will be humbled to be received in his presence. We'll present our credentials as Prime Minister and Governor-General of the independent state of Papua New Guinea, representing every one of us. And then I think a couple of days from then, the better proceedings will flow. We'll pay the respect. After that, I will separate again with Governor-General. I will fly straight to United Nations. Our appointment to speak at the United Nations falls in on the 22nd or the 21st or the 22nd in one of those days. So those are my leg of tour of duty to pay respect to the Queen that has passed and the King that is now sitting on the throne. Papua New Guinea is a constitutional monarch. At the Constituent Assembly, as I made mention this morning at the ceremony, to symbolically pronounce our responsibility to the King. In 1975, before our independence, the fathers and mothers of our country, through the Constituent Assembly, they've made our affinity to the Commonwealth and our our loyalty to the Queen. Well, the Queen is now deceased. It is now the King, and this morning we did swear our allegiance to the King. We will come back. When I come back, we will make relevant constitutional amendments to ensure that all our constitution is now removes respectfully Queen and places King in its rightful place, so that we are swearing oath and loyalty to the King and not to the Queen. After United Nations, we have a bilateral meeting with the Australian Prime Minister, and I'll be meeting him in Australia. Due to the urgency of time, I will be rushing back straight from New York into the meeting on the 25th with the Australian Prime Minister, and both him and me will travel to witness the funeral service of the late Shinzo, one of Papua New Guinea's very, very close friend, who served 10 years as Prime Minister of Japan. Under his watch, Papua New Guinea-Japan relationship was elevated to a very high place we enjoy today. And so out of that respect, I'll be flying to Japan to have the meeting, actually be in the funeral proceedings. Many world leaders will attend, ourselves representing our country and the Pacific. I will join the Australian Prime Minister who will travel to Japan. That will be on the 27th, and it just gets too tight for me, but on the 28th and 29th, Pacific Island Leaders Forum to meet the United States President, and so I will then fly back to Washington for that meeting. And of course, Papua New Guinea's issues will be placed on the table. We are not to be caught in many of the crossfires that is happening. Our issue, climate change, economic empowerment, our own country's agendas. Hopefully, when we are given a slot to have those conversations, our national interests and our regional interests will be placed on the table. But it will be a great privilege to also represent our country in that meeting with the other Pacific leaders who will be in attendance. Well, after this, I'll head straight back home, and in the meantime, our Deputy Prime Minister will be acting as Prime Minister. He will look after our country. Many issues facing us. He will be presiding over our Independence Day program. 47 years of independence coming up. I just want to take this time to appeal to our citizens, far and wide. As a Papua New Guinea, as a member in the global family of nations, we have our allegiance and we have our affiliations. We relate to many family of nations. One great family of nations we affiliate to is the Commonwealth nations, and the United Kingdom is a global superpower. Our relationship into that family of nations has many positives for us. For us, as we talk about the economic empowerment agenda of our own country, finding marketplace out there for trade and commerce is our new emphasis in as far as foreign relationship is concerned. So making those contacts on a leader-to-leader level, but more importantly, entrenching Papua New Guinea's contact with what, in my view, are big established markets. And big established bilateral for us is very important. So the next 3 weeks would be, for me, whilst attending funeral, whilst attending UN, and whilst having this meeting with PIF members, nations, with the United States President, Papua New Guinea's own relationship, bilateral relationship with these nations will be entrenched, and this is visits to United Kingdom, visits to United States, visits to Australia, and visits to Japan. Four big, important bilateral partners of our nation since 1975. This round of visits will, in some way or another, entrench our own relationships, but more importantly for me, making contact as Papua New Guinea's contemporary leader, and ensuring that our relationships don't go offline.